Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, YouTube and Facebook. I'm Scotty D49, and today I'm going to be introducing myself to you. Some of you may have come across my channel just through browsing through Facebook or YouTube, or you've found me on Instagram and you've come to my other socials, or you've dropped by Twitch and come to my YouTube page, but you haven't really heard a bit about me. So my name's Scott, or my nickname is Scotty D, that a lot of friends used to call me growing up. So decided to stick with that as my stream name. Pretty much how I got into miniature wargaming, which is my primary source of content, primarily Warhammer 40k, but we will branch out a little bit in the future, is I got into miniature wargaming through a family friend of mine who we were over at his parents' place one long weekend, and he had some miniatures out in the common room, and I asked him, "Oh, what are those?" And he goes, "These are miniatures for a Lord of the Rings game." And I'm like looking at it, I'm like, "Oh, these are sick." Now, I was about 10 at the time, and I was huge into Lord of the Rings. I'd watched all the films already, even though they were M15 plus, which was crazy. I absolutely loved the films. Huge Lord of the Rings buff still to this day. And so for my birthday, for my 11th birthday, my parents got me the Mides of Moria Lord of the Rings starter set. It wasn't just for me though, it was also for my brothers, and we all kind of got into it together at the same point. My dad was getting involved as well, helping us learn how to paint, building some terrain and stuff for it as well. And kind of over the years, as we kept on going, my brothers kind of fell off, and I kind of absorbed their collections of models and have them still to this day. Then, I start learning how to play and start playing proper games and everything. And a couple of years down the line, I'm like, oh, I'm looking at 40k. And so Warhammer 40,000, which is one of Games Workshop's other games. And I'm like, I want to get into this. So I coerced my parents in a way, being a 14-year-old, 13, 14-year-old in 2008. I get the Sultan Black Reach starter set for 5th edition with Space Marines and Orcs. Which is great. So I started in 40k. I didn't actually win a game of Warhammer 40k for 2 years from starting, which was cool. And I got into it, and so I got the Marine Codex and started building up Marine Army. I tried Orcs as well, but I really didn't enjoy them too much to start off with. But that was good fun. So I was just doing that over time, and as I grew more confident, I started to play in some tournaments at my local Games Workshop. So I was playing in Lord of the Rings events and some 40k as well. So I do quite well at Lord of the Rings, primarily using either my Gondor force or my dwarves as well. So, and I managed to get it to such a point where with my dwarves, I would be coming first or second quite consistently. Then started playing 40k events as well, not really getting too much success there, but just having fun and enjoying the games over that period of time. This was also back when Games Workshop in Australia were running what were called conflict tournaments on a state-by-state basis, and so I actually went and played in several different conflict events. It was run on a store level first, and then on a state level for semis, and then finals on a state level as well. So for the 40k one, I made it to the semis 1 year. I think that was 2010. But then in 2011, this was my most notable tournament experience to date at this point. I had made it to the grand final for the War of the Ring expansion for Lord of the Rings. And I ended up coming in 4th and getting the Best Sportsman award at the event as well. And I went 1 win, 2 losses. And it was because of those losses and how I handled that the event organizers decided to give me Best Sportsman as a result. So yeah, it was kind of like I was building up. I was playing consistently. I finished high school in 2012, and then 2013 it was kind of like, all right, let's keep on going. Now in 2011, I did also pick up Warhammer Fantasy with High Elves as well. And I still have them to this date. 2013 was quite a wargame focused year with my family friend and his circle of mates. We'd play Warhammer Fantasy quite regularly. I'd also go into the Games Workshop, play 40k, and then during kind of a shutdown period at my seasonal job at the time, I actually started a Warhammer 40k podcast. Well, started out not as purely Warhammer 40k, but after a couple of episodes morphed into purely Warhammer 40k with one of my mates, and we had a couple of guest hosts come on from time to time, as well as 1 or 2 hosts that stuck with us for a good period of time there, which was great fun. I enjoyed creating that content, and it's the same passion that I bring when I'm creating my streaming content and my VOD content as well. So over this time in 2014, I moved down to Canberra to go to uni, bring all my hobby stuff with me. There was a couple of stores, so I checked them out, really the one that I went to for a couple of events and to play on a semi-regular basis was about a 45-minute drive away from where I was living. So that was kind of a bit rough. Then around the start of 2015, I think it was February or March, my new local game store that I now call my local game store, Jolt Games, opened up. And it was kind of around that time I was in the local community, and I think around June, I approached the owner, formally introduced myself, and offered to run a Warhammer 40k tournament. And this is where I got my start in tournament organizing. And so I started running that event. About 3 to 4 months later, I actually ran another small one-dayer event. However, this one was the first Australian ITC event for Warhammer 40k to happen in the country. Back in 2015, which was awesome. It was then going into 2016 that I started to run more ITC events, other tournaments across the country, picked up ITC events. I was also still attending tournaments here. In 2016, I actually believe I went down to Terracon, which is one of Australia's most notable Warhammer 40k tournaments. It gets quite a large draw. It was an absolutely great event. And so as you practice for events and you try to do the best you can. So I did quite well on the first day of Terracon, and then just got absolutely pants the second day by the top tier players. So I'm still, we're all still on that journey of learning and understanding the game. But yeah, and so kind of I've played at several events. I've hit 10th quite a number of times, but never been able to hit that top single digit rankings at events myself, but I can play at that competitive level. And then come to the start of 2017 with CanCon, I run the Warhammer 40k tournament at CanCon after the previous THO had stood down and suggested my name to the organisers of the convention. And this is where I decided to run the first Australian ITC Warhammer 40k Championships for the ITC season. Of course, it's on the Australia Day long weekend, and that was great. It was 3 days, 8 games, 1850 points at the time, being 7th edition, with about 2.5 hour rounds to 3 hour rounds. I can't remember specifically, it was years ago. But that was a great event. We had 80 players, and that's been my largest event, and I absolutely loved it. It had its hiccups, but you know what, we got there in the end, and it was awesome to see the community come out and support for that. Now, a lot of stuff happens 2017. It was a bit of a rough year for myself, just personally, socially, a lot of things going on. And I step away from TOing, but I end up starting to work at my local game store, Jolt Games. And so from there, I started to run a lot of 40k events, Age of Sigmar events, trying to get that off of the ground. I understood a lot more about, Warhammer 40k products, Age of Sigmar products, Lord of the Rings, all that kind of stuff through selling them, but also understanding how to run events in general, like through running Magic the Gathering events, other wargaming tournaments, other card games, you name it. So that was really good. And then I kind of finished up working there kind of the back end of 2018, and went back to working in retail for a period of time there. Whilst I was still in Canberra, it was around that year that I also, 2016, I moved into my current place, which is where I am now. And so finished uni end of 2018, which was great. Then 2019, got married in September, and this is when I picked the hobby back up. I kind of took a bit of a hiatus when I finished off at my local game store, because being around hobby 24/7 can kill your hobby mojo for a period of time. So I went and I was playing a bit of Magic every so often, and just really focusing on prep for the wedding and work and all that kind of stuff outside of that at that period of time, and a lot of video gaming as well. So it was really at that point, got married, then I was like, I need an escape, because I can't video game 24/7, and I want something that's tangible. So I get back into doing my hobby stuff, which was eventual, it was going to happen. And I've really been going since. And then come to 2020, we have COVID hit, and like a lot of us, I got put on stand down. I didn't lose my job like a lot of people did, unfortunately. But yeah, I was on stand down, I had time on my hands, I was watching a lot of streamers, and I was just doing a lot of hobbying. And I was like, you know what, I've got a lot of experience under my belt. I know what I'm doing when it comes to running events, when it comes to what not to do for the hobby, what to do. I've got a lot of, the 15 years experience came up in November last year. And so I was like, you know what? Why not? I can give streaming a shot. Let's see how it goes. So come August last year in 2020, I start streaming. Now I do start playing Escape from Tarkov because I was absolutely engrossed by that game at that point, because that's also a time sink. But it was good fun and I enjoyed that. But then I decided to solely focus my content on Warhammer 40k. And so for me, miniature wargaming is not something that's just a solo hobby for me. It's a big part of who I am, and this hobby was very much an escape for me. And so to be able to provide a positive community, a positive place for where people are able to come together to hang out, to enjoy the hobby, to, if they're new to this hobby, to learn, to understand, to ask questions, to get advice, is something that's near and dear to me. Because I don't want to just be this person that goes, oh yeah, I can paint awesome, I can run these awesome army lists, I can run these awesome tournaments, but not go, hey, you're new, I'm going to help you. Because we can't help new people to the community, then what's the point? That's the biggest thing for me, is I want to help new people to this game. I also want to help people who are newer, but have, got their foot in the door, know what they're kind of doing, to advance their hobby, to get to that intermediate level. If they're wanting to go start playing tournaments, to help them be able to do so. But also, if they're wanting to play at high level competitive games, to help them understand how to do that, what they need to think about, what they need to be doing, why they need to be doing it. And then also to not just bring you hobby sessions with hobby tips or live games where I'm playing, but to also bring you event coverage. I see in the Warhammer 40k space, in terms of streaming, that there's not a lot of local tournaments covered. There's not a lot of smaller events covered. You might see your big events like Las Vegas Open, Adepticon, Nova Open. Those kind of events will get covered generally because Frontline Gaming is there, or someone else is stepping up to do it, or the event is going to be streaming it anyway, or Warhammer community goes and does it. But what about the smaller events? What about the local events? The 16-player one-dayer events that happen on a monthly basis at your local store, or whether it's a 2-dayer locally that's run at a scout hall or a convention space where you're able to draw interstate players. Why aren't those getting shown? So for me, that's also a core thing, is like, no, it's important to not just show all these top level events where you're seeing the top names consistently on the top tables. It's important to show off smaller events, local events, because you can also learn from seeing how people play, the mistakes that they make, what they do, how they do things. So it's not just a thing of like, oh yeah, you can learn painting tips and just hang out. I'm here to bring you content that's not only going to help you in your hobby, that you can ask questions, get advice, but also so that you're able to enjoy watching games that are of a fun nature, but also at a tournament and also at competitive levels as well. So you can understand and see what you can improve in your own game, in your own hobby, but also to encourage you. We've all got our piles of shame. And as you can see over my left shoulder, for me, right shoulder, as you're looking at the screen, you can see I've got boxes of minis there, buildings over my right shoulder as well. Left for you, there's also a tray of minis there. Everyone's got their own piles of shame, piles of grey plastic. Another thing I'm here to do is to encourage you to work through your backlog, to work through the mountains of boxes and sprues that you've built up over time, to give you encouragement, to help you do that, to challenge you to do that. Because you know what that means is you're going to have less space taken up, you're going to have more models that you can use on the table, and you're going to be able to have more fun and not have this massive pile sitting there giving you anxiety that you're like, oh, I've got to get through all of that. Whereas you can like, I actually got through that, I actually painted that, which is awesome. And I want to see that, and I want to encourage you to do that. So that's a bit about me. If you want to ask any questions about who I am more, feel free to drop by any of my streams. You can find all the details in the description. Or you can post in the comments below. If you found that there's something that you liked about this video and what I was saying in my experience, or you want to know more in depth, ask me down in the comments. I'd love to speak with you about it. Now, if you also want to encourage someone to come and hang out in my streams or check out my content, feel free to share this video. Because this is me taking my heart for my content and my streaming and going, this is what I'm wanting to share with you as a content creator. It's no longer about just being like, here's the hobby. But most importantly, I'm here for you guys. My purpose is to help. My purpose is to equip. My purpose is to instill knowledge and experience. My purpose is to bring you the best Warhammer 40k content I possibly can from Australia, because you hardly see it. So that's me. As I said, if you have any questions, ask down below. Have a look around at some of my other videos, feel free to do so. If you enjoy it, feel free to drop a like or a follow or a subscribe depending on the platform you're on. And I will talk to you in the next video.